I'm going to start this as a second video after 13 minutes of rambling that I might not even post. I think I've figured out a good thing to center this one on. And I mentioned previously about like fighting the suffering and then enjoying the good, and a little part of that was about having something to look forward to. And at the very end of my rambling that I just did before I started this next video, I was mentioning living more in line with nature and the seasons and the weather, and thinking about life in terms of like inches of rain and winds per mile, about like mile per hour winds and all that, it's wind speeds and hours of sunlight and stuff like that, and how the days get longer in the summer. And I know I'm not the one to come up with this. A lot of people who make the switch from living an unnatural lifestyle to living a more natural lifestyle and feeling like the rhythms of the world and the earth and stuff suddenly say what I'm about to say, and that's doing that really like takes you out of your own self and takes your tunnel vision away, and can be like an antidote and something that is resistant to depression. And let me explain the reasoning for this, or at least how I've experienced it and how I'm sure other people have. But when you start a garden and you're like, okay, like I'm not always going to be right here, but I'm going to put up some living things here that are always going to be dependent on how the conditions are right here. And thankfully, plants need rain and sunlight and a little bit of wind, a little bit of challenge and resistance, and fertilizer and soil, and all of these things, or like the fertilizers in the soil. I don't really use a lot of fertilizer, or almost any fertilizer on my garden, but other than like compost and stuff. Anyway, so all the conditions of the world, you see that plants are actually dependent on those things. Like obviously a tomato won't grow in the winter because it's dependent on the conditions of the summer, but still, it's going to rain, there's going to be wind, there's going to be temperature fluctuations to a certain window that is like better for those plants. So you say, okay, I'm not going to stand right in this plot of land for the next 90 days until my little sprout turns into a tomato, but I am going to just like set it up in a way where I'm thinking about it. Like I'm driving miles and miles away from my garden right now, and because I watered it thoroughly in the morning, I know that as the sun is shining on it and as the water is seeping down into the roots of all the plants, I've left it in good condition to not just survive, but to grow, to like actually have a surplus, a benefit from the day, from the time that it's spent. And a big part also of why this why this helps fight depressive thoughts is because you're looking forward to the future. Now, before I had my garden, what I would look toward to the future was usually like long weekends, which I still absolutely look forward to, holidays because of the long weekends, and then in that period of time where I was in control of, where I wasn't beholden to my 9 to 5 shift. It was more like 7 to 5. Anyway, it's like the length of time that you're in control of your own time, I would have something set up. I would plan to go in nature sometimes. I would go to see concerts a lot. I would really look forward to concerts. I would buy concert tickets like 2-3 months in advance, and every time I would feel upset, I would look forward to like, no, I'm going to see this like beautiful work of art and music that is literally like a symphony coming together, and this band, they're all people who were just sprouts at one point, and they grew in their story, and they came together to have chemistry as band members to make something beautiful, and they have rehearsed it again and again and again, and each one adds like a layer of complexity and like a layer of beauty to what I'm waiting on at work to go see eventually, that like I'm biding my time to get to that point to make the suffering worthwhile. Like you work a job you hate, say you clean porta potties, and then you make $7 an hour, and then after months and months and months, you get tickets to see your favorite band, and you effectively turn cleaning porta potties into music, as far as your eyes can tell, as far as like you're aware. Now, there's a lot of analogies here to like our physical jobs and us toiling in those jobs, and then the dormancy of winter leaving, spring coming into the world, and then everything that you've prepared, not cleaning porta potties, but a lot of manure, a lot of like composting stuff, and then building soil, and then taking advantage of the energy and fertility of spring and the change of season, and then you're making like a symphony of plants and an ecosystem that is dependent on the change of time, the sun rising and setting, the cycles of the moon, even the rain. And so it's really hard to get depressed when you're looking at what is this compost pile going to look like in 6 months. And I have to make sure that I'm turning it and adding, you know, some moisture to it, some other materials to it, making sure it's at a certain temperature. You know, you can't sit in bed and be depressed all day when you have something to look forward to. And knowing that a sprout turns into an actual tomato that you can eat in 90 days, you know, 90 days is way further of a payoff than 2 months waiting for a concert. And, you know, you might think like, oh, a tomato is way less payoff than seeing your favorite band like compose something with all those layers of complexity and beauty that they've like carefully came together to be like the specific unique event at the specific venue that was close to you in your town. And, you know, people will say like, oh, you should have been here at this specific show, and like it was electric and it was magical. And the same is true of like your garden, but it's a more subtle and more personal electricity and magic. And you make it and you can look forward to it. And, you know, it's funny, like I've said, you know, I get more joy out of like turning the compost than some people get from, you know, being on $1 million yacht with like 1 million models and like all the drugs they can imagine, you know. But it's like that doesn't even appeal to me. Like that's not even, if somebody was like, you want to go do that this weekend? I'll be like, oh, you know, how long? I got plants to water, like the chickens need to go up at night. And, you know, I'm not saying like I don't enjoy looking at a beautiful woman, or like I'm above, you know, like the carnal reaction you get to seeing like a big luxury boat. Like, yeah, of course I can appreciate that kind of stuff, but I truly have structured my life in a way where, you know, like I've worked some crazy jobs. I've worked a crazy job in the military and crazy jobs in machining huge machines and huge equipment. And when I've met people over the course of my life, obviously they ask what you do. And, you know, I'm like so much more interested to talk about my tomatoes and like what I've got sprouting and what's going on and like the drama that's going on in my garden. That's really like I'm only aware of. You know, even my wife, like I can't just be like, oh, you wouldn't believe, you know, with the spiders over in the lettuce plants, you know, what I saw, or like, you know, like, oh yeah, I saw like a mole hole or a chipmunk or something like that. I eat a tomato and then like toss half of it. You know, it's not, it's like something it's like that only I have, and it's what I'm like, what's on my mind that I would want a stranger to talk to me about. And, you know, it's like I have more pride, personal pride, that no one else really understands over those achievements than like what my occupation is. You know, like my occupation really exists to support my dream, you know, my dream and what I get to do when I'm not beholden to that schedule. And it's a shame, you know, you really only get these tiny little windows every day during the weekdays. The weekend is not long enough at all to really like you really should only have to work like 6 months out of the year. I don't know. I have no real justification for that, other than that's just how I feel. But yeah, like, you go to work, you work on these machines that you don't own, on this equipment that isn't going to have your name on it. You get paid like an hourly wage to make something that's worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars in 1 week. And obviously, like, you didn't pay for the material, you didn't pay for the machine that you're using, and you didn't pay for all the equipment that is associated with it. So I guess it kind of makes sense, like the percentage of your wage, but it's not really anywhere close to like the amount of money you're making the company always. And I get that they have costs and everything too. But like they say, a medieval peasant had a huge single family home. Obviously, he probably had to build it himself back in those days. And then they worked as like a craftsman for the local community for like 20 weeks out of the year, 20, 30 weeks out of the year. And then the rest of it was for them to tend their land, to tend their garden, usually the summer months. And like the other thing that I'm really looking forward to is like improving at the guitar. Like when I play, even though it's effort, and even though it's a struggle, and even though it's like very stressful and frustrating sometimes, I don't just play to make a noise and just do what's comfortable. I want to improve. I want to be faster. I want to be sharper. I want it to be tighter. And like the guitar, that's something you can do in the winter. Like, you obviously, if your whole personality is the garden, then you're really like, what are you doing all winter long? Like trying to grow potatoes under grow lights in the basement. You're just setting yourself up for seasonal depression. You need something in the wintertime also. Cutting everybody off. But yeah, you need things to look forward to. The garden is really great. Having animals, like even just a dog, like not even a farm animal or a cow that you have to milk every day or the milk dries up. A dog will wake up in the morning and be like, it's time for you to take me for a walk. That's your responsibility to me. And now you're obligated to stand outside in the sunshine and enjoy the flowers and smell the roses. So if you have nothing to look forward to and you don't want any responsibilities so that you can extend your, time sleeping or time overeating and then being like so full that you need to take a nap because you've indulged yourself like to the point of gluttony and greed, that's just going to maintain your misery. It's going to perpetuate it. It's going to keep you from ever getting the momentum that you need to like break out of that cycle. Having something to look forward to is important. I'm pulling up like on my work now, and I'm just thinking, today's Tuesday. I've already got one day down. Yesterday was kind of difficult, and there's going to be like more difficult days to come. I'm still like learning a lot, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to learning about electricity and plumbing and mechanical stuff and different types of fasteners and fuses and wire gauges and capacitors and relays and all this stuff. I would hope to one day apply it to my own equipment on a homestead. I would also like to have machining tools one day, like my own lathe, my own mill. There's a lot of joy in just making stuff and doing stuff. And when you gain a skill like gardening, then the whole world has a different lens on it. You look at plants differently. You start to identify things rather than just seeing everything as green. You start to see different purpose behind things. And then learning music, you see everything is music. You see like the patterns and the rhythms and the tones and like the timbre quality and characteristics of certain sounds and people's voices. And I always look forward to hearing new songs and finding new bands. And I heard someone the other day say that they heard someone say, I don't listen to dead artists. I only listen to living artists. And I was like, wow, that's a really interesting thing, a really interesting take, because, the music that's being made isn't undoing any of the music that's being made. It's just piling and piling and piling all on top. But how much more beautiful is it to say, like, oh, I only listen to my friends, you know? Like, I have 5 friends that make music, and all the music that we make is, like, enough for all of us to listen to. And it's, like, songs about each other and about our lives, and it doesn't get, like, more personal than that. It's a lot more interesting of an experience than to say, like, oh, yeah, I just listen to all the hits. You know, I listen to, like, the classic rock from, you know, the 1970s and 80s, and that's like the best music I ever got, and it's still on the radio today, and you can't go wrong with that. It's like, okay, like, enjoy that one-dimensional, shallow experience. But yeah, I don't know, like, it still feels like I do nothing but work, even when I'm home. You know, I know being a parent is a huge sacrifice, and, like, the payoff is, you know, even though it feels like that, getting, like, a good relationship with your child is invaluable. Like, it's worth all of the, you know, hard times trying to fight a toddler to sleep. It's worth, like, all the screaming and crying, all the diaper changes, and, like, honestly, like, so far I feel like I've had it pretty easy with my kids, and how sweet they are and how well behaved they are. You know, everyone likes to say, oh, just wait till they're teenagers, just wait till this, just wait till that. It's like, well, you know, just look forward to something. Yeah, like, I can't wait to see how my kids grow up. I can't wait to hear about the things they think and the opinions that they have, and, you know, I hope that they'll be more advanced than me, and they'll teach me stuff, and they'll see things that I could never see, and make my life more beautiful with their perspective than it could ever have been if I had never had them. So, yeah. If you have children, you already have so much to look forward to. You're already so blessed. If you don't ever want to, or you don't yet, start a garden. You know, there's always soil and rain and sunlight and seeds. And if that's too much of an undertaking, or you don't have the space, learn an instrument. Have something to look forward to.